Chess is a very good reflection of our lives, because no matter how rich, successful, and famous you are, if you don't have time left, then none of it makes sense. And today we're going to be looking at the top 5 games that world champion Magnus Carlsen lost on time. Greetings dear chess fans and experts, this is FIDE Master Max Omariev with you. And today's video is especially symbolic because lately I've also lacked time to create videos. But still I keep my activity quite regular on the channel and post my videos every week, so stay tuned. However, today's video is not about me, so let's see how the world champion loses on time. 5th place goes to quite a young Magnus Carlsen playing against Alexander Morozevich on the Tal Memorial in 2012. This is the position in the endgame. Unfortunately, we don't see the clock from this angle, but the opponents have about 30 seconds left. Magnus takes the pawn on a2. Now we have material equality. Alexander Morozevich centralizes the king. Generally in endings with little time left, it's harder to watch the knight's movements, so Magnus wastes more time. He plays bishop d5, attacks the pawn, but Alexander defends. And now the future world champion has to draw up a game plan, because simply going back and forth is not an option. He plays king f6, attacks the knight, knight g4 check, king e6, attacked the second one, dispersed all the cavalry of the opponent, and now gives an in-between check. But it turns out that white has everything defended, and black, on the contrary, has both pawns in danger, and this confuses Magnus Carlsen very much. He hesitated for the remaining 20 seconds. Though the position was absolutely equal, we could play h5 attacking the knight, but Magnus was so much in the position that he completely forgot that he didn't have much time left. As a result, he simply lost, because he didn't have time to make a move, and they played with 2 seconds increment. To complete the picture, let's take another look from this perspective, where you can see the emotions of Magnus and his movements. You can see that he's very unsure and really nervous, and at the last second is trying to make a move, but the time is up. 4th place goes to Magnus Carlsen versus Veselin Topalov at Norway Chess in 2015, where they played with the classical time control. Often there are 2 additions in the classical time control, after the 40th move and after the 60th move. But this time the addition was only after the 40th move. But Magnus, for some reason, didn't check the rules, and after the 60th move, naively believed that a lot of time had been added. Magnus Carlsen lost his absolutely winning position after 6 hours of fighting, all because Veselin Topalov noticed that the world champion had run out of time. Magnus immediately called the referee and began to work that out, but then realized that it was just his fault. He had not carefully read the rules of the tournament and deserved the penalty for that. However, one must admire his Nordic fortitude because he took the defeat with great dignity, not even breaking the chessboard.
Well, come on.
By the way, this emotional example comes from the US Women's Championship. We can have a look at that in a separate video. Now let's move on. 3rd place goes to the game from Paris Grand Chess Tour 2016, where Magnus Carlsen played against Wesley So. This is fast chess with time control of 25 minutes plus 10-second increments per move. And in this position, Magnus is down a piece, but his pawn is about to become a queen. He's calculating the consequences in detail, weighing the pros and cons, but there's less than 10 seconds left. Magnus, it's time to move. Hurry up. h7, he finally makes his move. Wesley So quickly goes king b3. Magnus immediately moves his king aside, and the whole question is, will Wesley So find the eternal check, and is it even there? Or will Magnus seamlessly queen the pawn and just mate the black king? This is the main intrigue now. Wesley So has less than 15 seconds left. He uses everything to the last second, practically because the moment is important. There are 2 options here, knight a5 check and queen d1. He doesn't have much of a choice. He starts with queen d1 check, king b4, and that's where he runs out of checks. King a7, he moves the king away from the check beforehand. Pawn promotion. Look, the world champion has gained almost 40 seconds, but he has 2 queens and he presses on time. Well, it would seem that the jig is up for Wesley So, but he suddenly attacked 2 pawns at once, b2 and a5, and both can be captured with check. In case of b2, there will surely be the eternal check, queen b2, queen a2. So it's quite obvious that we should part with the pawn on a5, and the variant of the king's escape from the eternal check is really quite long. Here we had to play queen h2 and move the king to the queen side by this route, so we move it away, slowly and gradually. There are almost no check options left. But the world champion spent all his time but didn't find this plan. He completely forgot about the fact that he had the last seconds left and, as a result, he ran out of time. There was another method of winning connected with queen's sacrifice and further king's escape to the opponent's camp. Black runs out of checks here, and on the contrary, white starts to give checks and then take away the opponent's pawns. Of course, it's extremely frustrating to lose by time in a winning position. The world champion is crushed, but does not forget about the code of honor and congratulates his opponent on the victory. Second place goes to the unofficial Fischer Random Chess Tournament title between Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura. This position arose at the end of the fourth day. They play rapid chess, but without time increment. Carlsen has about 20 seconds left, he has an extra bishop, and the position is objectively a draw. But we've seen the rook with bishop versus rook endgame many times, and maybe Magnus will be able to do that again. By the way, we can check the opponent's heart rate readings. Hikaru has 145 beats per minute. That's a good aerobic training, and therefore if you have a problem with excess fat, try this method. And Magnus's heart rate is more relaxed, though he only has 5 seconds to go. As if he'd forgotten that time doesn't add up. What's he doing? He should just ask for a draw. He could call the referee and ask for a draw, but for some reason he continues to fight. He's running out of time, 1 second left. Call the referee, Magnus, now. No, he has no time to do that because Hikaru registers loss, and Magnus has forgotten all about the time, got into a kind of the mad rush. But even in that state, his pulse is much calmer, as we can see. And I have a question for the smartest and the most attentive chess fans. What's the picture that you can see in the background? Pause the video to try and answer that question right away. Well, I hope you were able to turn on your logic and remember that they played on the Fischer Random Chess Tournament, and that's why the picture shows the grave of the 11th World Chess Champion. Frankly, I think the idea is not the best. It would have been better to just put his picture there. But that's the way the organizers decided to go. First place goes to the game from the World Rapid Chess Championship 2018, where Magnus Carlsen fought with a Ukrainian grandmaster, Adam Tokayev, in the first round, and nothing foretold trouble, because Magnus was the unconditional favorite. He's pressing by time and he has an extra pawn. In this position, Adam played queen d3, and Magnus has an opportunity to give up the queen for 2 rooks. He's thinking about whether to take the f5 rook or not, because the capturing is associated with certain risks. In particular, one of the rooks may be in danger after a series of checks, so Magnus weighs everything carefully, but still relies on his intuition and takes the rook. Adam has nothing to do but to take it. Now Magnus has 2 rooks against the queen. You cannot play queen d5 check with taking the rook, because there's a weak first rank and the white gets checkmate, and, most likely, Adam did not see it from afar, counting on this win. Well, now he has to deal with the current problems. Magnus has 2 rooks plus an extra pawn. It seems everything is very bad. Time is running out, Adam's last seconds are running out, but you can see by Magnus's face that he's tense and really hopes his opponent will run out of time. 4 seconds, 3, Magnus looks at his watch, but it's not meant to be. g4, the most unpleasant surprise for the world champion, as the pawn cannot be taken because the rook would be lost. Now the white king has escaped square, and Magnus has to make an urgent decision on how to keep the rook. He makes his choice and plays king e5. And now the Ukrainian grandmaster is desperately looking how to fork the king and rook, looking for all sorts of checks, but there's no time. Queen b5, and in order to escape from the eternal check, he has to take a risk and move his king forward. King f4, queen f5 check, king e3. It seems that he's about to announce a fork on the king and rook, but Magnus calculates everything accurately. He clearly calculated the consequences and realizes that he can be safe with his king in front, without fearing for the fate of his rook. Adam, on the other hand, runs out of ideas. He understands that now, if he makes another series of careless moves, the black king will come back home. It will be covered by 2 rooks. But there's little time left. Counterattack is about to begin, so he has to do what's come to mind first. He just gives checks. Queen c1, Magnus carefully weighs everything, however. He still has a little more time. King e4, the king goes home, queen c2. This series of attacks continues, but so far we can't see where it's going next. As we can see, the Norwegian Viking is in no hurry. King e5, come on Magnus. The world champion is not sure, but still makes his move, king e5. Well, what now? If he plays the queen e5, the king will move to d6. It's not a mate, and then he runs out of checks, so Grandmaster Topalov is confused. He doesn't know how else to disturb Magnus Carlsen here. But he can't just relax in his chair and go deep into the position, because he has less than 10 seconds left. 7, 6, 5. I'm sure Magnus is looking at his watch again, but the queen f5 followed. King d6. Magnus had only one move, and Adam plays king g2, passing the turn of the move, basically. Since he doesn't have any decent reinforcement here, he decides to make up time. After all, after each move 10 seconds is added, so it definitely makes sense. Magnus Carlsen, on the other hand, is not about winning the time. He wants to find some concrete idea of how to undermine the position. Ideally, he wants to move his king to the g7 square, so he starts attacking with the queen. And he thinks about how to secure his king. Indeed, there's this constant threat of the eternal check, and in such a situation, it is absolutely impossible to think about how to build up the pressure. You have to secure your king first, and that's exactly what the world champion is thinking about. But he can't think for very long either, because there are 25 seconds left, even less already. So right now, he has to make a decision, although he can actually repeat the position several times just to make some time. And I'm sure you think it would be a good decision to have some extra time, but Magnus has gone deep in the position and forgets that he doesn't have much time left. But he makes the move king e6. He succeeds, with literally 3 seconds to go. But the position is not very difficult, and he can make time king h3, and here, now Magnus has very little time. 10 seconds is needed. He can just move the rook back and forth, or move king to e7, or anything. Make your move, man. Make your move, 1 second left. As a result, Magnus Carlsen suffered a sensational defeat in the first round already, which was an extremely unsuccessful start on the World Rapid Championship. After that, many media started to publish news with the headline that the Chechen had defeated the World Chess Champion. Because Adam Topalov is a Chechen by nationality. As you have seen in today's video, even the World Champion sometimes forgets and stops controlling his time. And I thank you for your attention. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give this video a like, and don't forget to hit the bell button as well to make sure you don't miss any of the upcoming videos. Also, check our Telegram channel and Instagram where we post only the latest news in the world of chess. Keep playing and studying chess, and I'll see you soon.